The moment my brother shook hands with his alpha, I knew. He was trading me like a briefcase. The handshake was firm, professional, and polished to perfection, like everything Roy did in public. From across the glass-walled conference room, I saw the slight curve of his lips. A fake smile, the kind he reserved for boardrooms, cameras, and backroom deals. I stood in the corner, silent, like I always had. But this time, I wasn't invisible. I was inventory, property. Not even the kind you list on paper, no, more like a liability wrapped in flesh. An omega in a world where rank was everything and submission was currency. And I wasn't exactly cash. In this world, packs didn't run wild in the woods. They signed contracts in skyscrapers, brokered alliances over bourbon, and wore their hierarchy in the cut of their suits. Alphas at the top, betas running logistics, omegas filling gaps, comfort, compliance, control. I never fit the mold. Roy knew that, and maybe that's why he wanted me gone. His alpha, a man I didn't recognize, nodded once, sealing the deal. No one looked at me. No one asked if I agreed. Of course they didn't. Roy turned, straightened his cuffs, and finally met my eyes. "It's done," he said simply. Not "I'm sorry." Not "it's for your own good." Just done. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I watched. Memorized every blink, every twitch in his jaw, every scent of satisfaction radiating from his skin. I burned it into my mind like a brand. And I smiled, just a little, the kind that tasted of salt and steel. Because one day, I'd make him regret it. The ride to Iron Hall was silent. Tinted windows, leather seats, the scent of cedar and control. The car felt less like transportation and more like a hearse. I sat in the back, alone, my wrists resting calmly in my lap. No restraints, no threats, just the unspoken understanding that I had no say in where I was going or why. The driver, a silent beta in a black suit, didn't glance at me once. But I could feel his curiosity under the stillness. Everyone had heard the rumors. Roy Martin, mid-tier alpha, had sold his only sibling into a contract merger with one of the most powerful alphas in the East. Lian West, the Iron Wolf, a name spoken with respect and hesitation, not because he was cruel, at least, not overtly, but because he didn't need to be. Power radiated from him the way fire radiated heat, and people burned themselves just trying to get close. I rested my head against the window, watching the city smear into a blur of lights. Towering corporate dens disguised as homes, people in suits carrying leashes invisible to the human eye. This wasn't the wild. This was a jungle of metal and ambition. And somewhere in that sprawl, Lian West was waiting. It hadn't always been this way. When I was younger, back when Roy and I still shared bunk beds and burnt toast, I thought he'd protect me from everything. From bullies, from pack politics, from the alphas who saw omegas as nothing more than mating material. But Roy changed, or maybe he always was that way, and I just hadn't noticed. The first time he called me a liability, I laughed. The second time, I flinched. The third, I believed him. I wasn't like the others. I didn't scent the same. I didn't kneel the same. I didn't break the same. He said, I was defective. But the truth? I was different. And different scared him. The car slowed. Through the windshield, I saw it. Iron Hall. A building carved from stone and glass, rising like a fortress against the skyline. Black spires, silver accents, a logo shaped like a crescent fang etched into the marble steps. Not a home, a declaration. 2 guards flanked the front doors. Neither moved. The driver stepped out, circled to my door, and opened it without a word. I didn't move at first. Something heavy curled in my stomach. Not fear. No, I'd grown used to that. It was something deeper, older, like my body remembered a place I hadn't seen before. I stepped out. The air hit different here. Colder, sharper, like this place didn't just expect obedience, it demanded it. Inside, everything was dark steel and cool lighting. The hallway smelled of antiseptic and dominance. I was escorted, not by force but by precision, through corridors that echoed with silence. Every footstep felt rehearsed, every glance calculated. A woman in a crisp white uniform met me at the elevator. "Mr. West will see you shortly," she said, offering no name, no title, no smile. "Of course he will," I murmured. She didn't react. I was led to a suite, high up, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city like prey. Spacious, minimalist, perfect, and yet, so quiet it screamed. The door clicked shut behind me. Alone again. I walked to the window, placed a hand on the glass. My reflection stared back, dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes that held too much silence. But under that silence, something pulsed. Not weakness, not submission. Something else, something alive. I smiled again, just a little. Let them think I was quiet. Let them think I was broken. It was easier to get close when they weren't watching you burn. The doors opened with a soft hiss, like the building itself was exhaling. Iron Hall wasn't just a structure, it was a statement. A fortress of tinted glass and matte black steel, rising against the skyline like a predator watching its territory. Everything about it screamed control. From the armed guards in custom-tailored suits to the minimalist logo etched into the marble, a single fang framed by a ring of iron. I walked inside and instantly felt the shift in the air. It was colder here, not in temperature, in energy. This place didn't welcome. It assessed. A man in his mid-30s with clipped hair and a perfectly aligned tie greeted me in the lobby. "Kael Martin," he said, voice smooth like polished stone. "My name is Elia. I'm Mr. West's executive assistant. Please follow me." His tone was polite. Too polite. The kind that held the blade just beneath the surface. I nodded once. "Lead the way." We moved through corridors that gleamed under low, sterile lighting. Everything was precise. The decor, the color palette, the silence. No art, no plants, no warmth, only intention. "You'll be staying on the executive floor," Elia said as we stepped into an elevator. "Mr. West prefers privacy. Does he also prefer selling people through third-party deals, or was that just a fun exception?" I asked, voice flat. Elia didn't flinch. "You'll find Mr. West to be direct." "Good," I said. "So am I." The suite was impressive. Sleek floors, tall windows, a private bedroom, kitchen and office nook. It was 3 times the size of my old apartment, and yet it felt hollow, too pristine, like no one had ever truly lived here. A gilded cage was still a cage. Elia gestured toward the window. "Your belongings have been transferred. You'll find them in the closet. The meeting will be in 15 minutes. I didn't ask which meeting. I already knew. As the door clicked shut behind him, I exhaled, slowly, deliberately. 15 minutes. 15 minutes to prepare myself to meet the man who now, on paper, owned me. I crossed the room and glanced at my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling glass. My shirt still carried the faint scent of Roy's pack. I tugged it off and tossed it into the trash. From now on, I would carry no one's scent but my own. Let them wonder what that meant. 15 minutes later, I stood in front of another door. This one was heavier, darker, with a biometric lock. Elia stood beside me. "He's inside." "I assumed," I murmured. He gave me a look. Curious maybe, or impressed. I stepped inside. The office was vast, minimalist, like the rest of Iron Hall, but charged, as if the walls themselves had opinions. Tall windows behind the desk cast Lian West in silhouette, the sunset setting his shoulders on fire. He didn't stand when I entered, didn't gesture for me to sit, just studied me, and I studied him right back. Tall, broad-shouldered, black hair swept neatly back, pale eyes, not icy, not warm, just piercing, calculating, like he was cataloging every detail about me before I even spoke. He didn't move for several seconds. Then, finally, he said, "You're smaller than I expected." I raised a brow. Disappointed? He tilted his head slightly. Curious. I didn't answer. I walked to the center of the room and stood there, not waiting for permission, not asking. "You didn't sense submissive when you entered the building," he said, more to himself than to me. "Roy described you as docile." "Roy also described himself as trustworthy," I replied. "We all lie sometimes." Lian's lips quirked, just barely. "I don't tolerate disobedience." Then it's a good thing I'm not disobedient, I said. Just not obedient. That got a reaction. His posture shifted, a subtle tightening in the shoulders. He wasn't used to Omegas talking back. Good. He stood and walked around the desk. Up close, the power in him was palpable. Not flashy or aggressive, but coiled, controlled. A storm held in place by discipline. And still, he didn't reach for me. Didn't test me. Didn't try to assert scent dominance. He didn't need to. That made him dangerous. I don't know what Roy told you, I said. But I'm not here to play house or wear a collar. You paid for a contract. That's all it is to me. He nodded once. I don't expect you to pretend. His voice was low, even, and absolutely unreadable. I don't want a mate, he continued. I want stability. The merger with your brother's pack gives me that. You're part of the package, but you are not my pet. I blinked. That was unexpected. So what am I? I asked. Unknown, he said calmly. Which is why I'm watching you. The words were simple, but my instincts flared. My pulse quickened, though I kept my expression still. He wasn't watching me for weakness. He was watching me for something else. Recognition, maybe. Or fear. Back in my suite, I collapsed onto the couch, adrenaline still prickling under my skin. Lian West didn't look at me like Roy did. He didn't see a burden, but he didn't see an equal either. Not yet. Still, there was something in the way he spoke, the way he held himself near me but didn't press. As if he was listening to an instinct he didn't understand. As if he knew that whatever I was, it didn't fit the mold. And that scared him. Good. He should be scared. Because I didn't come here to submit. I came to become something no one ever expected from an Omega. Unbreakable. There was something wrong with me. Not physically. I wasn't sick. Not emotionally, at least, not more than usual. But something had started humming beneath my skin like a current. A low, steady vibration I couldn't explain. It started the second I entered Ironhall, got louder after I met Lian West, and now it wouldn't stop. The first time I noticed it, I was brushing my teeth. The mirror fogged, and for a second, I didn't see my reflection. I saw someone else, not clearer, just other, a flash of gold eyes, blood-soaked hands, and a voice that wasn't mine saying, "He's not your brother, not anymore." Then it was gone. At dinner, Lian didn't join me. Elia delivered food to my suite, salmon, rice, greens, plated like I was a guest instead of a contract. I ate in silence, eyes flicking now and then to the massive windows overlooking the city. The hum in my skin hadn't faded. It built like pressure behind my ribs, like something inside me was knocking, asking to be let out. I ignored it. That night. The next, I didn't. The training floor was on level -1. Elia hadn't said it was off limits, but he hadn't invited me either. I found it by accident. Or instinct. The room was huge. Polished black mats, mirrored walls, a small armory on one side, wooden weapons, staffs, combat gloves. The lights buzzed low overhead, dimmed for late night. I stepped onto the mat barefoot. My body moved before I could think. A lunge, a pivot, a low crouch, arm sweeping up in a strike I didn't remember learning. My heart pounded, breath sharp. Every motion was too clean, too automatic, like muscle memory, except I'd never been trained, never. At least, not in this life. I stared at my hands, trembling. What did he put in me? I wondered. But deep down, I knew Lian hadn't put anything in me. This wasn't about him, this was me. Remembering. Do you often train without asking? I froze. Lian's voice echoed from the doorway. Calm. Cold. I turned slowly. Do you often lurk in doorways without knocking? He stepped inside, barefoot, dressed in dark training gear. The sleeves hugged his arms, showing coiled muscle and discipline. I don't need to knock in my own territory, he said simply. I tilted my head. That's one way to say boundaries are optional. He studied me. You move like an alpha. I blinked. Excuse me? That stance, that posture, it's not defensive, it's offensive. Predatory. I shrugged. Maybe I'm just tired of hiding teeth. He stepped closer. You weren't trained in combat, were you? No, I admitted. He narrowed his eyes. Then why does your scent spike every time you hit the mat? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. But my scent did shift. I'd noticed it too. Not the typical omega sweetness, but something sharper, wilder. It made the guards tense when I passed them in the hall. Made Elia glance twice when I entered a room. And now, Lian was noticing too. He stepped even closer, too close, and I felt the burn of him. That deep alpha energy pressing against mine like a current testing resistance. I didn't flinch, didn't lower my gaze. And that exact moment was when it happened again. A flash, a memory, not memory. I saw him, Lian, not here, not now, but somewhere darker. His throat bared, his eyes wild, and me standing over him with blood dripping from my hands. Saying next time, submit faster. It vanished in a blink. My knees buckled slightly. He caught my elbow. You okay? He asked, and for the first time his voice wasn't cold. I nodded, breath short. Yeah, just dizzy. He studied me for a second longer, then stepped back. Don't overestimate your control, he said. Your body's reacting to something, and if you don't figure out what, someone else will. Then he turned and walked out. I stood alone on the mat for a long time after that. The mirrors reflected my face back at me, pale, wide-eyed, still trembling. He's watching me, I thought, not like Roy did. Not with contempt, but with suspicion, fascination, fear, and maybe he was right. I didn't know what was waking up inside me, but I knew it wasn't obedient, and it definitely wasn't safe. Later that night, I stood by the window again. The city pulsed beneath me, full of secrets and steel. I pressed my hand against the glass, and for a second, I imagined claws. Not metaphorical, real. I closed my eyes. Somewhere deep inside, something growled. The rooftop garden wasn't on the public floor plans. Most people in Ironhall probably didn't even know it existed. But late one night, after sleep had refused to come for the third time in a row, I found myself drawn upward. Up the elevator, past the quiet hum of the executive level, and through a narrow stairwell that smelled like old stone and mint. The door to the garden wasn't locked. It should have been. The air up there was still and soft, warm from the day, but cool just enough to carry the scent of lavender and night-blooming jasmine. Low lanterns lined the edges of a stone path winding through square planters and ornamental trees. Everything was neatly trimmed, curated, controlled, like everything else in Ironhall. Except this space breathed. I needed that. I didn't expect anyone else to be here. So when I turned the corner and saw Ilya sitting on the edge of a stone bench, legs crossed, staring up at the sky, I froze. He didn't look surprised to see me. You found it, he said quietly. I wasn't looking, I answered. But yeah, I did. He gestured to the bench beside him. Sit, if you want. I hesitated, then dropped into the space beside him. Not too close, not too far. The city lights twinkled below us like the stars we'd traded away for ambition. We sat in silence for a few moments. Then Elia said, You've been waking up. My shoulders tensed. What does that mean? It means, he said slowly, that whatever's inside you, it's not dormant anymore. I've seen it. I can feel it. So can Lian. I glanced sideways. Is that why he watches me like I'm a loose thread in his suit? No, Elia said. He watches you like you're the blade he's not sure will cut him or save him. That silenced me. Elia leaned back, laced his fingers behind his head. You hide it well, the control, the calculation. Most people would take you for a passive omega. But you're not passive. You're a storm waiting for the wind to shift. I looked down at my hands. They were steady now, but I remembered how they'd trembled in the training room. How my pulse had spiked. How my eyes had. Have they glowed? I asked suddenly. My eyes. Did you ever? Once, he said. In the hall, when Lian challenged your stance, you didn't notice? I thought I imagined it. You didn't. I sat in that truth for a beat too long. Then I asked, what does he think I am? Elia exhaled through his nose. I don't know. But I know what I think. He turned toward me, expression unreadable. I think you're descended from something most of us have forgotten, not just genetically, spiritually. Some bloodlines, they carry more than traits. They carry memory, intention, fire. I swallowed. That sounds like a fairy tale. He smiled faintly. So did love. Until it ruined me. His voice was softer now. Raw. I turned toward him. You were an alpha once, weren't you? He nodded, gaze distant. A long time ago. Before I met someone who made me want peace more than power. She was human, fragile, brilliant. I gave up my rank to be with her. What happened? She died. And the pack I gave up everything for cast me out anyway. I said nothing, because what was there to say to a man who had lost love, rank, and still stood tall? He looked at me again. That's why I know what you're carrying, because I carried it once, until I had to burn it down. I breathed slowly, my chest tight. You think I'm going to burn? I asked. No, he said. I think you're going to ignite. The rage came without warning. It wasn't directed at Elia, or even Lian. It just rose, hot, fast, like a match struck against my ribs. I stood too quickly, nearly stumbling. My skin prickled, my vision tunneled, and in the reflection of the glass railing, I saw my own eyes flare gold, glowing, bright, alive. Elia didn't move, didn't flinch. Breathe, he said calmly. I can't, I gasped. You can. His voice anchored me. Kael, you are not breaking. You are remembering. Let it come. But do not let it own you. I dropped to one knee, fingers digging into the cold tile. The pulse in my neck thundered. My heart raced. Then, slowly, it began to slow. My breathing evened out. The light in my eyes dimmed. When I finally looked up, Elia was still watching. His face unreadable, but not afraid. You're not dangerous, he said. But you are disruptive. What does that mean? It means Lian doesn't fear you hurting him. He fears you changing him. That shook something in me. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. The dream didn't come gently. It crashed into me like a wave, hot, metallic, and full of teeth. I wasn't in my bed. I wasn't even me. I was standing in a clearing, the moon high and vicious, surrounded by ash and fire. My hands were slick, not with sweat, but with blood. My own, maybe. Someone else's. It didn't matter. He stood across from me, the man who called me brother. But he wasn't Roy. He was older. His eyes burned with betrayal, and his voice rang through the haze like an oath. You were never meant to lead. You were meant to follow me. I tried to speak, but my throat was filled with smoke. He lunged, and I died. I woke gasping, my sheets twisted, damp with sweat, the scent of smoke still in my lungs though there was nothing burning. Nothing but me. I stumbled to the bathroom, turned on the light, and froze. My reflection was waiting. Same face, same sharp cheekbones, dark hair, but the eyes staring back weren't my own. They were golden, bright, ancient, terrifying. And for a moment, I remembered. Not details, not names, just power, a deep-rooted strength pulsing through my veins like a second heartbeat, one that didn't belong to an omega, one that didn't submit, one that ruled. I spent the rest of the day walking Iron Hall like a ghost. People passed me, betas, staff, even guards, and I felt it in their body language. The stiffness, the slight hesitation. My scent had changed. Sharper, wilder, no longer easily categorized. I didn't wear it like a threat, but I didn't hide it either, and that made them nervous. Good. Let them be nervous. Let them wonder. By sunset, I knew what I had to do. I found Lian exactly where I expected him, in the lower chamber, a private hall used for negotiations, strategy, and training. The walls were mirrored, the lighting dim, the floor polished obsidian. It felt like a stage. He stood in the center, arms crossed, brows furrowed like he'd been thinking too hard for too long. When he noticed me, he didn't speak right away. He just looked, and that look said everything. He felt it too. The shift, the storm. You're changing, he said quietly. No, I replied. I'm remembering. He tilted his head slightly. What exactly are you remembering? I stepped forward, slowly, carefully, but without fear. I don't know yet, I said, but I died once. I remember that. Someone who claimed to love me, to be my brother, killed me. Silence. Lian didn't speak. So, I kept going. I don't think I'm just a genetic fluke. I think something older, someone older, lives in me. Not as a ghost, as memory, as instinct. A legacy that didn't die. I stood in front of him now. Only a few feet between us. He didn't flinch. But his scent changed. Not aggression. Not dominance. Tension. You think this is reincarnation? He asked, voice low. I don't know what to call it. But when I fought in the training room, it wasn't the first time I moved that way. When I stood up to Roy in my head, it wasn't the first time I defied a brother. This body is new, but something inside it isn't. A flicker of recognition passed through his eyes. He stepped closer. You're not just an Omega. No, I said. I never was. He studied me. Like he was trying to solve a puzzle, only to realize he'd been holding the wrong pieces the entire time. You disrupt everything, he said quietly. The scent hierarchy, the power dynamic, even instinct. I should be. He cut himself off. I raised an eyebrow. You should be what? In control, he muttered. But I'm not. The honesty in his voice struck me harder than any slap. It wasn't accusation. It was confession. I stepped closer still, until we shared the same breath. You said I scare you, I said. His jaw tightened. I do, don't I? He hesitated, then nodded. Once. Yes, he said. You're not what I expected. You're not even what I understand. And that makes you dangerous, not because of what you'll do to others, but because of what I might do to you, I finished. He didn't deny it, didn't look away. He just stood there, powerful, calculating Lian West, undone by something he couldn't name. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt seen, and in that moment, something shifted between us. Not romantic, not even trust, just recognition, like two predators realizing they weren't alone in the forest. Later, back in my suite, I stood in front of the mirror again. My eyes were their usual color now, but I could still feel the gold underneath. Waiting, awake. I didn't know what I was becoming, but I knew this much. I would never kneel again. Ironhall had a cafe tucked between two administrative wings, all smooth stone counters, brushed metal chairs, and soft yellow lighting. It looked almost normal, which made it feel wildly out of place. I wasn't used to normal. I was just trying to order tea when someone leaned too close to my shoulder and said, "Careful, the espresso here tastes like betrayal." I turned. The guy smiling at me was maybe my age, give or take a year. Tousled brown hair, soft hazel eyes, too much charm in a place designed to suffocate personality. He wore his work badge on a lanyard. Skylar W., Internal Logistics. "Do I know you?" I asked. "Not yet," he said, extending a hand. "But I know you. Sort of." I raised an eyebrow, not taking his hand. "That's not creepy at all." He laughed. "Yeah, I'm working on that. I'm Kael. "Oh, I know," he said cheerfully, grabbing a pastry. "Everyone knows. You're the mystery Omega Lian brought in like a corporate asset. People are either terrified of you or betting on when you'll crack." "Charming," I said dryly. He took a bite of his pastry. "Me? I'm rooting for you." "Why?" "Because this place needs shaking up. And you're a walking earthquake." I didn't respond, but I didn't walk away either. We sat at a corner table by the window. Sky did most of the talking. I mostly listened, quietly cataloging everything. He was good. Too good. Effortless conversation, subtle deflection. He was either naturally likable or had trained to be. "You like it here?" I asked finally. Sky shrugged. "It's a job. It pays well. Keeps me busy. Lets me snoop without getting arrested." "Ah. So you're a gossip." I prefer the term informed. He winked. I sipped my tea. "You said people are betting on when I'll crack." "They are." "And you said you're rooting for me." "I am. But you also said this place needs shaking up." He tilted his head. "Is that a question or an accusation?" I met his gaze. "I haven't decided yet." His smile twitched. "Fair enough." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small wrapped candy, sliding it across the table toward me. "Peace offering?" Bribery, I said. Same thing, just with sugar. I picked it up anyway. It wasn't until halfway through our second conversation, 2 days later, that he slipped. We were walking down one of the less used side halls, where the lights flickered just slightly and the sound of our steps echoed too loudly. Sky was talking about nothing: vending machines, Lian's terrifyingly perfect handwriting, Ilya's obsession with recycled paper, when he said, "At least this time, Lian didn't send anyone to spy on the kid, like he did with that last alpha blood anomaly." I stopped. "What?" He froze. "What did you say?" I repeated. Nothing. I meant just gossip, rumors. You know how people talk. No one said anything about a previous alpha blood, I said slowly. Not to me, not in the records, not in the reports. So how do you know? Sky's smile didn't drop completely, just shifted. From casual to controlled. That's my job, he said too smoothly. I manage internal information, logistics, I see patterns. You slipped, I said flatly. Or I wanted you to hear it. I stared at him. He stared right back. And suddenly, the hallway didn't feel casual anymore. It felt like a test. Eventually, he backed down first. "I'm not your enemy," he said quietly. "But I'm not innocent either. Just remember that." And with that, he walked away. That night, a letter waited for me in my suite. No name, no return address. Just a cream-colored envelope on my desk, sealed with wax. Not the Iron Hall insignia. Something older. A spiral mark I didn't recognize, but that made my spine stiffen. I lifted it to my nose instinctively. The scent hit me like thunder. Jasmine, rose, ash. I knew that scent. I hadn't smelled it in years. It was hers. My mother. My heart stuttered. I sat down slowly, tearing the seal with fingers that didn't feel like mine. The note inside was short. "You're not what they think you are. You never were. Don't trust the mirror. Find the place where the wolves forget their names." No signature, but I didn't need one. I pressed the paper to my chest, eyes burning. She was alive, and she was watching. The walls of my suite felt smaller than ever, and I realized, whatever game I was playing inside Iron Hall, I wasn't the only one playing it. The old library didn't look like much. A narrow stone building wedged between two sleek towers downtown, its sign half faded, its windows dusty. It smelled like paper, mildew, and silence, the kind of silence that wrapped around you like a forgotten memory. I stepped inside, my boots echoing softly across worn tile. A woman was waiting near the back, seated at a table with a stack of books she wasn't reading. Her hands were gloved. A scarf covered most of her hair. Her posture was impeccable, too elegant for the dusty setting. She didn't look up when I approached, but I smelled her before I saw her eyes. Jasmine, rose, ash, her. My voice caught in my throat. "Say something," she said softly. "So I know it's really you." "Mom?" She looked up, and there she was. Older, thinner, sharper around the edges, but still her. The eyes that used to watch me sleep during storms. The mouth that once whispered lullabies about wolves and stars. "Kael," she said, and for a second, the world froze. Then she stood, crossed the distance, and pulled me into her arms. I didn't cry, but I shook. Her arms tightened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have found a way to come back." "You're alive," I said into her shoulder. "All this time, I thought." "I know." We stood there in the scent of old books and old grief, until the librarian coughed discreetly in the corner. We moved to the rooftop. The roof was cracked stone and rusted railing. Potted plants struggled in the corners. The wind was gentle, and for once, the city didn't feel like it was watching. She leaned against the edge, gazing out at the skyline. "You're angry," she said without turning. I didn't deny it. "I thought you were dead," I said. "Roy said you died when I was little, that you were weak." She laughed, low and bitter. "Of course he did. So, why did you disappear? Why let me grow up in that pack with him?" She turned then, and her eyes, sharp, tired, alive, met mine. "Because I knew he'd turn on you," she said simply. "And I couldn't stop it." I stared. You knew. I knew what he would become. And I knew what you would become. I had to disappear. If Roy thought I was gone, he'd feel safe. If he felt safe, he'd grow careless. I've been waiting for the moment he'd try to get rid of you. My stomach twisted. And Lian? You knew about the contract? I didn't know the name, but I knew the plan. He'd sell you off the moment you stopped being convenient, like I was never more than a bargaining chip. You're more than all of them combined, she said, her voice suddenly steel. You're not just my son, Kael. You're the last living descendant of the Silver Howl line. I blinked. That's a myth. No, she said. It's history. The Silver Howl wasn't just a bloodline. It was a philosophy, a belief that packs didn't need hierarchies, that alphas didn't need to rule through fear. Your father tried to change the system. For that, they killed him. And they would have killed you too, if they'd known. My hands curled at my sides. He had the alpha heart, I whispered. She nodded. And now it's in you. I sat down slowly on a low bench. The wind tugged at my jacket. All my life, I'd felt like I was broken, like something in me wasn't syncing with the rest of the world. Now I knew why. I wasn't broken. I was built differently. I was designed for a world that didn't exist yet, and maybe it never would, unless I helped create it. She sat beside me. I came here to warn you, she said. Not just about Roy, about Lian. My head snapped toward her. What about him? He's not your enemy. But he is afraid of you, and fear makes powerful men dangerous. I know, I said quietly, but I'm not afraid of him. She smiled, a sad, proud, heavy thing. I see him in you, she murmured. What? Control, power, repression. But you also have compassion and choice. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. When the sky began to fade into indigo, she stood. I can't stay, she said. Why not? Because if Roy learns I'm alive, he'll come after me. And right now, your war is more important than my presence. I stood too. You're not alone anymore, I told her. I never was, she said gently. I had you. She touched my face. Then she turned and walked to the door without looking back. As the wind rose behind her, I stood at the edge of the rooftop, hands in fists, heart steady. I wasn't waiting for someone to save me anymore. I wasn't hoping for a way out. I was becoming something new, not a follower, not a victim, a force, and for the first time, I felt ready. They brought Roy through the main entrance like a visiting king, shoulders back, mouth tight, arrogance dripping from every step. He wore a tailored suit, and that familiar smugness I'd grown up choking on. The room, Ironhall's primary strategy hall, fell silent when he entered. Executives, guards, advisors, they all shifted, sensing the storm building beneath his calm. I stood on the other side of the hall, arms folded, watching him cross the floor like he still owned my name. Lian stood between us, not blocking, not guarding, just present. His stance was neutral, silent. It wasn't his fight. It was mine. Kael, Roy said, voice sharp, almost rehearsed. You're coming with me. I didn't blink. No. His eyes narrowed. This wasn't part of the agreement. You're right, I said. The agreement was that you'd hand me over like a crate of stolen goods. You never asked if I wanted to go. You never even looked at me. I'm looking now. Too late. He stepped forward. You don't know what you are. You're dangerous. You're unstable. You don't belong here. You're right again, I cut in. I don't belong with you. Roy's composure cracked, just slightly. Enough for his scent to spike. Frustration, panic, rage. Lian didn't move. He was letting me decide, letting me speak. And so I did, loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. You threw me away because you thought I was weak, I said to Roy. Because I didn't kneel when you barked. But I wasn't weak. I was waiting for the moment I could stand without your shadow crushing me. Roy bared his teeth. You're not an alpha. No, I said calmly. I'm not. I'm something worse for you. I'm the reminder that your rules don't apply to me anymore. The silence stretched long and cold. I could have saved you, I added, voice quieter now, but sharper. I could have been your ally, your blood, but you chose control, you chose power. So now, I stepped forward. I choose me. Roy turned toward Lian, fury dancing in his expression. You're just going to let this stand? Lian's voice was smooth, even, controlled. He's not mine to command. That stunned Roy. He's your Omega. He's no one's Omega, Lian said. And just like that, it was over. Not officially, not legally, but spiritually. Roy had lost the battle before he ever walked in. And everyone in that room knew it. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed and tension slowly drained from the walls, I slipped out through the side hallway. My hands were still shaking, not from fear, but from release. I didn't hear Sky approach until he was beside me. Well, he said with a low whistle, that was one hell of a debut. I didn't look at him. How long have you known? About you? Since the moment you walked in. No, I mean about Roy, about me, about the bloodline. Sky was quiet for a moment. Then, long enough to feel like crap about it, I stopped. Turned. So you were spying? Yeah, he said honestly. I was sent to observe you. Report on any anomalies. Watch for signs of instability. By who? Third Council. He shrugged. I was never loyal to Roy. But I was supposed to monitor you. And now? I asked. He looked me in the eye. No smile. No deflection. Now I'm staying. Not because it's safe, but because I saw what you did back there, and for the first time in years I think maybe the system can break. And maybe you're the one who'll crack it wide open. I didn't respond right away. Then I nodded. Fine, but you're not behind me, I said. You walk next to me. Got it? Sky grinned. Yes, Alpha. I rolled my eyes. Don't push it. That night, I stood alone in the main hall again. Empty now, echoing with the weight of earlier words. I thought I'd feel proud. Instead, I just felt ready. Not finished. Not crowned. Just standing. For the first time in my life, fully upright. I wasn't Roy's mistake anymore. I wasn't Lian's asset. I wasn't an Omega to be moved around like a pawn. I was a beginning. And beginnings never ask permission. The night after Roy left, Lian came to me. He didn't knock. He didn't command. He just stood in the doorway of my suite, quiet, hands in the pockets of his jacket, watching me as if seeing something shift in real time. You could stay, he said. On your terms. I studied him. The man who once terrified me, who watched me like I was a puzzle he didn't ask for, who'd allowed me to choose, and hadn't tried to steal that choice back. I know, I replied. And then, I walked past him. For 2 weeks, I disappeared from Ironhall. Not in secret. I told Elia I needed time. He simply nodded and handed me a list of names before I left. I traveled light, just a duffel bag and the fire in my chest. I visited packless Omegas in crumbling towns, banished Betas working warehouse shifts, Alphas stripped of their titles for loving the wrong people, those who had been discarded, like I once was. Some of them didn't believe me, some of them were afraid, but enough of them listened, and that was all I needed. The building I found wasn't much. An abandoned civic center outside the city, cracked windows, peeling paint, the bones of something once proud. Perfect. I poured everything I had into rebuilding it, not just physically, but spiritually. Brick by brick, room by room. I made space for people who'd never been given one. Elia showed up on the 4th day, sleeves rolled, toolbox in hand. I never liked silence, he said. Thought I'd try something louder. Sky arrived 3 days later, tossing his resignation letter into a bonfire outside the door. What's the fun in logistics if I'm not breaking the rules? More followed. People with no place, no title, but hearts too loud to silence. We didn't call it a pack. We called it the heart. Because that's what it was built from. And that's what would keep it beating. 2 months after I walked away from Ironhall, Lian came to find me. He didn't bring guards. He didn't bring orders. He brought silence. And stood in the new common room, watching the people I'd chosen. Some sparring, some laughing, some painting the walls with their own designs. You did it, he said. I leaned against the doorframe beside him. Not alone. He glanced sideways. You're not an Omega anymore. I shook my head. I never was. Then what are you? I smiled and showed him my wrist. The mark was fresh, carved and inked by my own hand, not a symbol of submission, but of rebirth. A spiraled sigil with a jagged edge through the center, the seal of the heart. Lian's gaze lingered on it. Then he did something I didn't expect. He unbuttoned his cuff, rolled up his sleeve, and extended his arm. "I don't follow," he said, "but I stand with." I took his hand, and the bond formed, not one of dominance, but respect. An alpha, recognizing another. That evening, we stood together on the rooftop balcony of the restored building. The city glowed in the distance, the sky painted in ink and gold. Around us, the sounds of laughter and music drifted from below. No ranks, no hierarchy, just voices, rising together. "You're changing the world," Lian said. I looked at him. "No," I said quietly. "We are." He smiled. Not the tight, polished smile I saw when I first met him. A real one. Warm. Free. I once thought strength meant control, that I had to become what others feared in order to survive. But now I know the truth. Strength is choice. And freedom? It's being exactly who you are, with nothing to prove. I am Kael Martin, not a castaway, not a pawn, not a relic of someone else's war. I am the heart of my own pack, and I will never kneel again.